I am getting the socials out. We are going live. So let me get this
All
out
right.
on. We're out on Twitter and Facebook now. I think we're right on time. We're right at 6 p.m.
Nice. I
So,
I I pushed it a lot today on my streams too.
well, I was in the middle of running heroics, and then Chris ducked her head and was like, "Can you help with this?" And I went, I'm in the middle of streaming and tanking, and all of a sudden I'm like,
On a heroic.
not in a good time. So I was able to finish up the one I was doing, and then thankfully, Tactical Bean was able to jump in and pick it up for me because she was like, 10 minutes, and that I was out there for 15 minutes and came back and told him I was like, guys, this is gonna be like a 30, 45 minute deal. You just need to go on without me. I got the honeydew list to hit me before the rain hits. So
Oh yeah, the honeydew list. So once I'm at Menethil, I fly there, or
no,
how do?
Menethil will take a boat. I got to get there first.
Okay, I'll wait for you at Menethil. We'll go
Yeah.
on stream.
Dun, dun, dun.
A
All
little
right, we're
journey to the fishing hole today.
out on Twitter, and we are now over here. All right, I need to take the boat from here. All right, welcome everybody. As we're getting up on social media and everything else, welcome to the fourth episode of Catch of the Day, the podcast where myself, Renfell, and Nathan Napalm over there talk about various topics related to RPGs, MMORPGs, tabletop games. Although I don't think we've actually done a tabletop episode yet. We will eventually do one at some point. We've got a lot of
Yeah.
MMORPG stuff to cover. While fishing in World of Warcraft Classic on the Peggle server, where we have characters playing with our guild from the Raven Syndicate, which is the gaming community that my brother and I have had for the past 8 years. And Nathan's here, co-tanking and co-running this time around with me as we prepare to do lots of big things in World of Warcraft. So if you want to come join us, usually on Thursday nights immediately following the podcast. Um, you're on Sorensen, right?
Yeah, I'm on
Yeah.
my Sorensen. Yeah,
Normally, right after the
I'm a fisherman.
podcast, we go do our Thursday night multi-stream, which is myself, Nathan, my brother Ithrodor, Sparrow, and Maduros. But tonight, um, there's a Pantheon event, so Nathan won't be there tonight. Nathan and Sparrow are off doing the Pantheon things, but I will be streaming afterwards with myself and my brother Maduros. By the way, are you at the same docks as I am?
Oh, I was here. I was at the flight point.
Oh, yeah, sorry. I'm down at the docks.
Headed there.
So, MMORPG topics and beyond. Today, we're going to be doing kind of a dual topic. What would we call this? It's like in development games, perhaps, or
Sure.
indie development woes, perhaps, something like that.
Yeah, I
You,
think so. Yeah.
you had a topic that I was not even really familiar with because I'd only seen the clip that you were referencing. So I'll let you take it from there because yours is like the starter to it, and then we can go from there into the Chronicles of Illyria lawsuit stuff.
Yeah, sure. So there was a little bit of a what you might call MMO content creator drama. Um, Not really a big deal, but it leads to a very interesting topic where Josh Strife Hayes was doing some modeling, painting some figurines and things live, and someone asked him a question about Ashes of Creation, and he answered, but his answer was actually he was talking about Pantheon Rise of the Fallen, not Ashes. So it didn't make a lot of sense for what was happening in Ashes for what he was saying because he was actually talking about Pantheon Rise of the Fallen. And then Narc made a video about it, and it was a very nasty video. And today I didn't catch what was going on until today this morning when Josh Strife Hayes posted a video explaining like, whoops guys, I was talking about Pantheon. But what he said in that video I found really interesting was he said, I don't really care about games in development. I'm not going to follow them. I'm not going to listen to every word they say. I'm not going to get invested and all tore up about every little thing that's happening in development because that's development. And it's not going to be that way. So by the time we make it to launch, who knows? So I care about MMOs when they launch. Until then, good luck, Pantheon. Good luck, Ashes. I'll see you at launch day. Right? So think that's an interesting. See, I like to watch development. I like to follow it, and there's plenty of people who do. But I think there's more people that don't care, and they just want to play the game, judge the game when it's done. They don't care about all the talking and the here's what I'm adding to the game, etc.
Thanks for the subscription, Eugene. Appreciate the support.
Yes, thank you.
I think that, by the way, I ran off the dock there. Um, I think you brought something up that's very important because this ties into, for better or for worse, the reaction that Asmongold had done off of your video. Because
Sure.
I think he's, when you said most people don't care. By the way, do we want to fish off the docks, or is there someone else we should be going?
I think this would be good. Yeah, just
Okay.
right here off the docks.
This is an interesting thing for me because I went from being at the head of an indie development team and developing a game for basically 7 years to now not really. I definitely take the Josh Strife Hayes road and kind of like the Asmongold route, which is I could honestly care less about. I mean, games that are in development. Somebody, I think you even maybe it was on your one of the times we were live streaming. Somebody in your community, I think we were talking about Monsters and Memories, and
Sure.
that had sparked a conversation about what did I think about Monsters and Memories,
Yeah.
and my opinion garnished some controversy because I literally said they just started. It's a bunch of people doing it in their spare time as a hobby. Come back to me in 5 years, 6 years, and let's see if they have something that's worth being excited about. Until that
Sure.
point in time, I could give two shits. I really couldn't. And I was that way about Pantheon until the hiring of Steve Clover.
Yeah.
Steve Clover getting hired made me sit up and go, oh. And I did that video where I said, I think they actually do have a snowball's chance now because I think that hire, in my mind, took them from being, not even, I wasn't even going to waste my time paying attention. But the same thing could be said for Ashes Creations, Star Citizen. I
Sure.
even backed Star Citizen on Kickstarter for $40 way back in the day, and I log in once a year and try it out. But for the most part, the only thing I do is I read the monthly or whatever it is newsletters that Star Citizen sends out. And apart from that, I couldn't be bothered. I don't pay attention to their social media. I don't pay attention to their their conferences. I don't pay attention to any of that stuff. So I definitely get where Josh F. Hayes is coming from, and I also get where guys like him and Asmongold and any other big content creator, most of those guys don't pay attention to in development games because so many of them don't make it to the finish line.
Yeah, and not only that, but like Josh was saying, it's just, it's hype, right? Which is fun, right? But also you're very possibly hyping something up that isn't actually going to make it to the game. In many cases of MMOs, right? And here's why I don't feel that way. I think it's exciting. If we had a game like Pantheon on the market right now, or even anything remotely in the last 10 years like it, I wouldn't be as invested in Pantheon. I'm more invested in it because, I'm just playing games that are kind of giving me a scratching my back a small bit right now. You know what I mean? And I'm playing multiple games to feel the full scratching of my back. I can't get it all from one game. So Pantheon's a game where I believe I'm gonna get everything I want out of. I could be wrong. That's just what I believe. So I like following it, and to me, there's no difference. And once again, Josh Stripe Hayes does not do these kind of videos either, but many of the content creators do, which is after the game launches, I'm still going to be hyped about news, patches, updates, expansions. I'm going to be just as hyped about the future of the game as I am about the development. To me, it's all the same. Getting the game out, it's still, yeah, it's out, but it's not done. It's never done. So I just feel like development is just the longest phase, like you're waiting for the very first patch. Do you see what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
That's how I look at it.
I think there's something else to be said for, I would say, look at Shroud of the Avatar as an example, which is a game that did make it to the finish line. Crowfall's another example, but I'm going to use Shroud because recently they've been in the press because they had a
Sure.
major issue with their servers. They're getting, I believe it's a 5 or 6 week rollback.
Yeah,
Think
that's
about that
brutal.
for a minute. A 6 week rollback because
So
of,
let's look at it. Where would that put us in World of Warcraft if they rolled it back 6 weeks?
oh Jesus, we'd be
We'd be in
how,
Burning Crusade for sure,
yeah, we'd
and
still
we'd
be running
be.
Crusade. I'd be like level 65, or whatever it
Dude,
is.
that would be brutal, would it not?
Oh, they would lose so much money because they would have so many paying customers that would be like. But the joke about Shroud was like people were saying, well, there's only 5 people playing that game, so it doesn't really matter anymore. But the point I wanted to make is even live games when we talk about indie games, there's a reason why I, as an example, look at a game like Monsters and Memories, and I'm just like I kind of shrug my shoulders and go, cool. You know, if they can actually get it to the finish line, I will pay attention when it gets to the finish line. Um, some people would also say, and I'll put this out there because I know some people will say, but Tim, don't you have a Patreon page for your own project? We do. But here's the thing: we actually already have, and we have had since the beginning. We have we have products. Like
Yeah.
there are lots of different things in development through that Patreon page for the Weave and the Void, but there are already tangible products that you can get your hands on. There's the tabletop source book with Nathan's artwork and artwork from Becca, which is Bounty and Spear's daughter, artwork from Christina. There's the module. There's
Tabletop that you can play the module. Yeah, you
yeah,
can
you
actually
can actually
play it.
play it. So you got those two things. You have map packs, art packs. You have the there's 28 chapters of the book already published.
Yeah, that's not the same. That's a product. You already have a product
Right.
with more products coming.
And granted,
That's
the one part of that would be considered an in development thing would be the point and click game, which and that's
sure.
a valid criticism. But I would say it's actually not quite exactly the same thing because we already have three tangible products, which is the tabletop game itself, the module itself, and then the book chapters. Not to mention 3 updates per week on all the different things. But when you're talking about something where you're waiting 6, 7, 8, maybe even 10 years before there's a tangible product, I definitely get where guys like uh, Josh F. Hayes are coming from, because I've definitely become a little jaded over the course of waiting 7, 8, 10 years for certain games to come out,
Sure.
and that's from teams with millions of dollars of funding, and they still can't get a game out within 10 years.
Yeah.
So I totally get it. I don't. What
I
did
do
he
too.
What did he exactly say? Because you said he said something nasty. I haven't watched any of the
Oh, not
footage.
not Josh, not Josh. I'm a
Oh,
huge fan of Josh. Josh has never said anything nasty unless it was super sarcastic I've ever heard, and I've consumed tons of his content. I'm a big fan. I love that guy. I think he's probably the classiest MMO content
he's
creator
got a sexy accent
there
too.
is.
Not gonna lie. Like,
Great accent, yeah. Like, don't want my wife to watch it. You know what I mean? She might fall in
yeah.
love with him, kind of thing. Um, love that guy. Just a class act. I love his sense of humor, everything. When I said nasty, I was actually talking about Narc. Now,
Oh,
Narc makes a living, by the way,
yes,
off
being
of being
obnoxious.
this way over the top. Because
Obnoxious.
I watched your video today about Asmongold, which is true. But Narc is way even like times 10 over the top, right? And it's all an act, and it's obvious it's an act. It's within his skit that it's a joke. You know what I mean?
The banana hammock thing with Steven's face on it was that was as far as I got into the video. I was like, I can't watch this right now. I don't have time. I'll watch it
That's,
later.
that's crazy. But I do not like his making of the meme, making popular of the meme of the copium, because to me because I just feel like now that that's in the world, now you're not allowed to have hope. You're not allowed to now. Oh, you must be breathing that copium, man. Take that copium machine off your face for a little while and breathe some real air. Like, bro, you're allowed to be hopeful for things. In a world where you're not allowed to be hopeful, I don't want to live in it, right? Like,
Yeah.
there's nothing wrong with that, and I hate that meme's out there in the world. I feel like it's super damaging to everything, not just MMOs, but like, like I can't be looking forward to this Breath of Fire spiritual successor that's being worked on now because I'm on copium because I want a new Breath of Fire. It's just like I don't like that. I feel like He is a toxic content creator
Yeah,
overall. On
there's.
purpose. On purpose.
I think yeah, it's and that's something to be said for um. Ooh, that's nice. Did
Is
that literally
nice.
that so that just dropped? That was the dungeon I was supposed to be tanking, and then
Oh no.
but I don't use one-handed sword, so it's really cool that he was able to go and get that sword while he was tanking that dungeon.
Heck yeah.
Actually, I think they're actually in Halls of Stone. They went somewhere else, but still, that's very cool. Because I had to duck out and Tactical picked up the slack for me since I had to go do chores. Anyway, grats to Tactical.
Yeah, grats, man.
Uh, some people, yeah, going back to the toxic content. I mean, there are guys out there who purposely create things that are obnoxious. Now, I would look at like as an example, Dr. Disrespect is another example of someone who creates obnoxious, not necessarily toxic, but just obnoxious over the top content for the purpose of being entertaining, and has literally
Yeah.
said, and when he's actually doing like serious interviews, he's like, he just never break character. Like, you just can't, you can't break character. And Nox is definitely that way. I don't like most of his content. What I do like is watching Asmongold and other people react to his videos,
Sure. Yeah.
because they're quite amusing. Um, well, I feel like this kind of ties into looking at one of the reasons people might not want to cover in development indie MMORPGs.
It's hard to cover, first of all.
Hard to cover, first of all. Second of all, is the issue I said with Monsters and Memories. Are they even going to make it to the finish line? Um, because I would argue that 98% of indie MMORPGs that have started have not made it to the finish line. And without even getting into, and that's just talking overall, not we're
And
not.
there's some right now technically in development that I think we can all agree they're not going to make it. As a matter of fact, I don't know if you heard the news. It's fairly new, but Camelot Unchained is out of money.
Oh, they actually finally announced that they're completely out of
Yeah.
funding.
Yeah, remember we've discussed, we thought that may be the case, etc. for a while now, but it's official. They're broke.
Did they make like a blog post or something?
Um, Hang on, I'll pull up the article and I'll link it.
Okay. Because I want to
But
go.
yeah,
I want to go read it
um,
at my leisure.
so I found out while I was live. Oh, well, there's him rebutting it back in July. Anyway, I'll get it popped up here in a minute when
Oh,
I
no
find
worries.
it.
I'll have to
I
look at it
found
on
out
my
while I
phone.
was live. So Camelot Unchained, big trouble. They made roughly 8 million, maybe a little less than that, but somewhere in that realm, off of funding. But it's been in development since
It's like,
literally, I think, 2012,
yeah,
right?
it's been like 12. It's been, excuse me, at least 10 years.
It's been, yeah, they're the longest out of the, Ashes and technically Ashes and Pantheon went into development at the same time, but Ashes was self-funded for a while. For quite a while, the first, bit of the development phase there, whereas Pantheon went, hey, fund us before, like, they slapped something together real quick, real fast. But I mean, like, in all reality, the project had just started when they went for funding. But they both started at the same time. But then you got Camelot and Chambers actually 2 years older, and not showing progress, in any form. So not good. But there's lots of them in development right now that aren't going to make it, even right now.
That's a good example. This just ties into the theme of whatever I'm going to call this episode, which is going to be like indie game dev woes, perhaps. Um, the other issue, here's because that's a company where the founder was independently wealthy, kind of like Steven from Ashes of Creation. Only Mark Jacobs had actually built a game before and had, a reasonable amount of fans, much like Richard Garriott, whose game failed, much like the guys from company behind Crowfall, who had done Star Wars Galaxies and what was the other game they did? Shadowbane? No. Was it Shadowbane? Something like that. Another
Yeah.
PvP game. Like these
Yeah.
were veterans who are now in their 60s, and had built MMORPGs before. And even with 8, 12, $30 million in funding, their games have still failed upon release. or in some cases failed to even get to release. And in the case of like Camelot Unchained, probably not making it if they're out of funding. Um, Bringing this
Well,
back.
it looks like there's a little bit of assumption happening here.
Okay.
Um, Maybe they're not out of funding. It just that seems to be what everybody thinks is going on by the low staff, small amounts of progress, etc. Um, I got that news from while I was live, and I assumed it was just a straight article, but it kind of is, but it's not. So maybe they're not, but they probably are.
Well, if they've reduced
They're
staff to, maintenance mode, yeah,
pre-launch. Yeah,
that's not good because pre-launch you're still supposed to be, 30, 40 people, ramping up production, not slowing down production.
yeah,
So if you're down to a skeleton crew, that suggests that, yeah, you're probably out of funding.
yeah.
Um,
But it's still assumed at this point.
yeah.
I'd still think Mark Jacobs will find a way. He'll find an investor. He'll do something. He'll sign over to Game Ago. I don't know. He'll do something. He'll get that game out. I do believe so.
Find a way to make it happen. Well, and he's got enough. I mean, he may still have enough clout left in the industry to actually inspire someone to give a shit enough to want to support it and help get it out.
I think so.
Others are not in that boat.
Oh, sure.
This
Yeah.
this would be the perfect time for me to spin and pivot and say, oh my, Grolar, that fishing pole. Oh, by the way, he gave us some beer. I need to share with you. I forgot about this. I gotta find it now.
He
How do
made
I?
some?
I think so. Here, I forgot to give this to you so we could be drunk while we're fishing. Oh, hang on,
Nice.
it didn't split.
Oh, okay. Did I take it?
Nope,
Okay, no.
I had to split it. All right, I'm gonna chug some. We gotta get drunk fishing. Oh yeah, look at that blurry screen.
Nothing like a few beers and casting your rod out for some fish.
Now we're cooking with gas, as they say. Um, so Chronicles of Illyria announced that the class action lawsuit against them has been dismissed in the state of Washington. Now, along with that announcement came the fact that they're $500,000 in debt. It's literally him and like one other guy working on it. They haven't made any progress in the last 4 months because they've been out of funds and dealing with the legal fiasco. And he is now taking a software management job to pay the bills and to cover development on the game. Now, before we talk about all of that, I do want to talk about the lawsuit for a minute, because there are a lot of people who are upset with him because they say that he pulled the rug over their eyes, and this being Caspian from Soulbound Studios,
Sure.
that he squandered and misused, I think it was again, like it's similar to Camelot Unchained, like $8 or $12 million somewhere in that ball. But let's just say,
Yeah, 7.7 million.
yeah,
according to the website.
let's say $8 million, um, over the course of like 5-6 years, and released a tech demo that looked like something somebody could have put together in a weekend with a little bit
Probably
of
did. Yeah.
Unreal development. And then said, "Oh, we're out of money. We're shutting the studio down." And then he turned right back around and said, "Actually, we're not shutting the studio down, but I had to fire everybody. Can't do this." And then he got hit with a lawsuit. And then in the middle of getting hit with the lawsuit, decided that, well, hey guys, I'm actually going to develop this other thing called Kingdoms of Illyria, which is like a top-down kind of isometric survival type art, like strategy game. I don't even know exactly what it is.
Something like that, yeah.
But the class action lawsuit made a lot of claims. They claimed that there was fraud. They claimed all of these things, right? What is important to understand is that the federal court threw it out as a matter of law. For those who don't understand what a matter of law means, that means that the judge looked at the case and said that the prosecution, not the prosecution, but the plaintiff, right, the person bringing the claim, did not provide sufficient evidence of any wrongdoing. In other words, all of their claims were so incorrect, and there was no evidence to support the claims, that the judge says, you don't even have enough evidence. There's no evidence here to support your claims. I'm throwing this out. The reason for this being And I did an episode on this a few weeks back talking about the difference between pledging and pre-ordering. And the reason this is important is because for indie games that are in development, in terms of indie woes, and why guys like Josh Strafe Hayes are probably not wrong to have a cautious, wary eye on indie titles that are in development, because this is another case of something gone wrong. At the end of the day, a lot of people are upset that the lawsuit didn't go through, and they're already talking about we want to make appeals, we want to, that was just the federal court, we can appeal in the state court, and all this other stuff. But it's like you're kind of fighting a lost cause because the terms of service clearly state that when you pre-order to a crowd-funded game like this, you are not actually, the easiest way to explain is it's a donation. You are donating
Yeah, you are. Yeah.
to someone in the hopes that they're going to maybe eventually get you something for that. But it's literally considered from a tax and business perspective, it is a donation, which means it's not taxable, it's not income, it's a donation. And as a donation, it does not have to be refunded under any circumstances. And the terms of services for most pre-order games clearly state that that money can be used for a wide variety of purposes. It does not have to be refunded. The game can be canceled at any point in time for any reason whatsoever or for no reason at all. The game can be changed for any reason or no reason at all. And at the end of the day, the only thing they have to provide anybody with is an accounting of how those funds were used, if it ever gets to the point where it actually gets canceled.
You know what it is? Just to make this clear for everybody. When you pledge to a project, unless you're pre-ordering or something like that, when it's just a pledge, you're super chatting them.
That's exactly what it is.
That's what you're doing. There's no guarantee of anything. You just gave them some money because you believe in them and you believe that they will use your money responsibly. They don't have to.
And the terms of service clearly state, one of the things in the terms of service is that the company can make changes to the product, but as long as they deliver a product, then they are free and clear from litigation. And you also waive your rights to class action lawsuits, you agree to arbitration, and you agree that the company is free from any liability for anything at all. And the people who were upset about it didn't read the terms of service, and as a result, the case was thrown out as a matter of law. Now, the reason this is important is because when you're looking at games that you're going to support from an indie perspective, understand that you are supporting someone's vision. That's it. You're not actually pre-ordering anything. You're supporting a vision, and you need to be willing to basically throw that money away and give it to someone as if you were giving money to your brother or your sister or your church even. You're donating that money to someone, and you're never going to see that money ever again. If you get something back from it, cool. That's a bonus. Yeah. That's icing on the cake. But you do not have any legal rights to any product whatsoever because you're not actually pre-ordering a product. You're pledging to a vision. And that's a reason why a lot of guys like Josh Strafe Hayes will look at indie projects and say, it's not for me. I'll wait until it's actually a product. And once it's a product, then I will take it and I'll look at it and see if it's worthy of my time. And in some cases it will be, and in some cases it won't. We can look at Shroud of the Avatar and Crowfall as a couple of examples of games that did launch, but unfortunately were not good enough to make it and did not provide enough players. I mean, Crowfall just sold their product off. Shroud of the Avatar essentially did the same thing. They just gave it to their lead programmer and said, good luck, and now they have 5 people playing the game. And I know that without disparaging anybody, there's a game that's launching on Saturday that I know has grave concerns because I know the early access went live today, and I happened to check in. I haven't looked in about 4 hours to the mmorpg.com thread. It does not look good. It's getting savaged by people from being launched way too early in an unoptimized state. It's being considered an early access title even though they're calling it a fully launched game. And these are the types of things that unfortunately lead to guys like Josh Drive Hayes or Asmongold, as an example, looking at footage from these indie titles and making comments like, that's the worst MMORPG I've ever seen, or
Yeah.
fuck this game. Not that Josh Drive has said that, because he's a
Right.
classy guy, but Narc
Yeah,
obviously made a video, joking about this.
yeah.
It's a tricky, man.
Well, here, I'll say this too. I think Embers is the most dangerous so far, okay? And the reason I say that is, at least Shroud of the Avatar, for example, at least it pitched itself as being a MMO light. It wasn't trying to be a real MMO, a real old school MMO. It was trying to tickle your nostalgia a little bit and give you something fun to play, single player, like literally offline or online.
Hmm.
It was not going for the full, like, we're an old school EverQuest clone, right? And the problem is going to happen with Embers, and no doubt this will happen. People like Asmongold, etc., are going to use Embers as an example as to why old school MMOs don't work.
Yep.
And unfortunately, it's going to look very true. But the real issue isn't that it's gameplay or design, because the gameplay loop is fun. It's good. It's hard to get to that. We talked about this on our first show. It's hard to get to the meat when the plate is made out of shit. Okay, so the performance is so bad that who cares about, maybe there's a delicious steak on this plate made of crap. Nobody cares because it's made out of crap. You don't care about the steak anymore. You can't even get to that part to enjoy it. So unfortunately, that's what I was afraid. That's what I've always been afraid of with Embers. And I really hope that there's, once again, I said this before, I'm really hoping that it's just like, there's a big old patch coming in on day one, you know what I mean? And it's going to feel way better, and somehow it's going to work out. But I don't think it will. I'm going to be there for launch, but it's not going to look good. It's going to hurt. It's going to hurt the entire industry of people like Pantheon, who is taking their time and trying to optimize things and make an awesome network that can run tons of people simultaneously, etc. Because now this is our first example of this is it doesn't work. People left the game, etc. It's not good. It's not good for the industry.
I don't disagree. I think there's again, I haven't watched the threads in the past few hours, but I caught it as soon as the post went up this morning. There was immediate, like, a few pages of people saying that it's there's really only about 15 to 20 hours worth of content, and then once you hit like level 20, there's nothing left to do,
Uh,
and you're just grinding out skills to level 30, and then there's literally nothing from 30 to 50. That's what I read. I can't confirm, but I've read that there's nothing from 30 to 50, and everyone's been told that that's coming post launch. But the question is, how fast? When is it coming post launch? I know another concern that I've seen, and this is on their own forums. There's a thread called "What does the game look like outside of the bubble of testing?" And there's been some concerns raised that some of the features that are being promoted as launch features haven't ever been tested
sure.
in the actual beta community by any of the testers. So you have even their own testers who are questioning, A, are these systems actually in the game? Because we've never seen them. And B, if they are in the game and you're literally launching them on Saturday and they've never been tested, neither one of those scenarios looks good for your game, because you're
Or
going to
plays out well.
you're going to get savaged by the streamers out there, and the reviews are going to come in
And then that's it. You only get those reviews for your launch one time. You can now, big name people have made comebacks, but I never saw the little man make a comeback. I've only seen the big guys make comebacks, right? Could World of Warcraft retail make a big comeback in Dragonflight? Sure. They're a big dog.
they've got the
can do
money
that.
to suffer
They got the
through.
money. Yeah, they can suffer through. It's kind of like Unfortunately, I can't mention names here, but
Sure.
I can be generic here. There's a company I deal with that, uh, they've made really good investments and they've been really smart for, 15 years, right? That industry's in big trouble right now because of the economy. It's part of the economy that is doing one of the worst, right? And that is their business, right? But you know what they said? I talked to a guy the other day, and I said, "How's everything going? Are you guys going to make it?" He said, "Listen, man, because we were smart for 15 years when the times were good, right? We didn't squander away our money. We stashed it away. We were smart. We can afford to take a loss for a long time, and our employees don't have to take a hit. Our company doesn't have to take a hit. We don't have to do layoffs. We don't have to do nothing. Our customers don't have to pay higher prices. We'll take a hit for a long time. We'll even lose money quarter after quarter if we have to, because it will get better. And when it does, we'll make money again and we will be fine." And I was like, that is how you run freaking business, Like, I worked in a restaurant one time actually, where there was that potato famine. I don't know if you remember that.
No,
Maybe like you
not
remember
really.
that
I
potato famine about
vaguely.
8 years ago or so. It
Mm,
didn't last long, but everybody thought it was like the end of the world, right? And he runs a restaurant. He has fries. That's a big part of his menu. And he's one of those, mom and pop stores where they pile the fries on. Like Five Guys.
mm,
Like you order fries, you just get a mountain of them, right? Well, there's a potato famine. He was having trouble, and it cost a ton of money for him to order these potatoes. And we were like, "What are you going to do? Are you going to raise the prices?" And he was like, "Well, I didn't raise the prices when potatoes were cheap. Or I didn't lower the prices. I'm sorry, I said that backwards. I didn't lower the prices when potatoes were cheap. I'm not going to raise the potatoes when they're more expensive. It'll balance out." It's like, but you have to be smart in the way you lay out your business to do that. And unfortunately, for an indie developer, I think Chronicles of Valyria made enough money to pull that off, right? But
sure.
I don't think Embers Adrift ever had the funding to do that, right? Like I feel like they're just in that scenario where if they don't make it at launch and it's bad and they get bad reviews, I'm afraid they're done. That's it.
Um, yeah, it's it's unfortunate. It is unfortunate.
Really is.
Uh,
And I'm gonna play it. I am still excited because a new MMO releasing is exciting. Even if the servers are down and I'm just laughing with chat, about how the game's broke. I enjoy launches, and I'm excited about it, but I am not expecting a lot. I'm going in with very like low
well, here's
expectations, and
another way to put it. Here's another perspective to it. I paid $30, I think it was, for Star Wars Squadrons, right?
sure, sure.
And I got 6 hours of gameplay out of it. That's it. I felt a little upset that I had spent $30 for 6 hours of enjoyment, but it was a fun 6 hours, so I didn't feel completely ripped off. On the flip side, I'll never forget when I bought um, Destiny. When Destiny came out, I bought the base game, right? It was like $50 or whatever to play it with my brother. And we played through the campaign thinking it was going to be like Halo with like a 30-hour campaign or 20-hour campaign or something, and then more content with the multiplayer. And we played the campaign, and it was literally like 8 hours, and I had spent $60 for an 8-hour campaign, and I was pissed off. I was like, there is no way that was worth $60. And there's like, yeah, but you could do all of these. It's the open world group based stuff that's really important now. Like you need to go out there and do the group based dungeons. And I was like, at the time, I wasn't into that type of gameplay because I just wanted to play it with my brother.
Sure.
So I was thinking, oh, it's going to be like Halo, and we're going to be able to do this single player storyline together, and then we'll go off and do co-op. And instead, it wasn't like that at all. Maybe that's on me for not understanding what the game was. But the point I'm getting at is that you might spend $30, you might get 20 hours of entertainment out of it, and you might go away with feeling like, you know what? I'm not going to play this game anymore, but at least I got my money's worth for the $30. But
If
that's
you
a
get 20 hours out of it, it's a
that's
dollar and some change an hour, right? That cost you for that. And
if yeah,
you tried to support an indie team. You tried.
sure.
You know what I mean? You gave it what they asked for, and tried to you tried to support it. So you don't have to feel guilty, at least, when the game crashes because you tried to support it. I will say that. I would have felt guilty if I wouldn't have given them a dime, right? I would have felt like maybe I'm part of that problem because I didn't give them a dollar, and I like old school games, right? So I don't think I will personally feel bad about it no matter what happens. Um, because I can walk away and say, "Hey, I got a clean conscience. I tried to help the little guy." You know what I mean? I supported what I blabber on about on my channel every day, all day.
I think the question
So
for most people is, they're not interested in just getting 20 hours. If they're going to buy into an MMORPG, they want to know, especially with a game that's charging a subscription,
subscription,
they want to know that
yeah,
they're getting hundreds of hours of entertainment, not later on down the road when the game gets better, but from the moment that they purchase, they want to be able to start exploring hundreds of hours of entertainment. That's a hard sell for any indie team, not just Embers. It's a hard sell for any team because, and I've talked about this before in the past, this goes back into the indie woes thing. Um, let's look at a game like, well, it doesn't really, I can't really use a single player game as an example. So let's look at Shred of the Avatar is a good example. I can say this because I actually went to their offices at one point in time. They had 30, I think 38 people. The first time I went to their office, they had 38 people on staff. And you go into their offices at that point in time. This is pre-launch, a few months before launch. And they had a team, I want to say they had 6 or 8 artists, 6 or 8 world builders, so you've got people making 3D assets and people making zones and dungeons, right? And it's like a team of like 12 people, and that's all they're doing is content creation. And then that team is working with the writers, and that team is working with the music composers, and they're all working with the VFX team. So in total, you've got 20 people probably working together just on content. Then you've got the production team who handle the marketing and all of the other stuff, and then you have the programming team who take care of that stuff. And in total, you know, you're looking at all these teams. A lot of these indie teams are trying to run these little 15-man crews
sure,
in no way,
or
shape, or
less,
form, or less. In some cases, it might be 10 people. And or you've seen little indie games trying to say they're building an MMORPG with 3 people, and it's like, the reason Project Gorgon has taken 20 years to get to where it is today is because it's a husband and wife team, and they have
sure,
literally, it might not be 20 years, but it's been like 16, 18 years that they've been working on that game. Like, that is a labor of love, and it makes enough money for them to work on it every single year, and it pays their bills. But it is by no means going to ever become a overnight success that's going to generate hundreds of millions of dollars in sales or even tens of
right,
millions of dollars in sales. It's going to be it's going to provide $50 to $100,000 a year of income for a husband and wife team, maybe.
right,
Um, and they're okay with that. And as long as they're okay with that, that's fine. But the reality is that if you want to release a game that goes beyond niche, and Project Gorgon is an example of what most people would consider to be a niche title, you have to have a team of artists and world builders to support the creation of not just dozens, not just a dozen, sorry, but dozens of zones and dungeons for launch. And when you have games such as the one coming out this weekend that only have 6 zones in total for their launch product, and yet they're charging a full box price and a monthly subscription, that is a hard sell for a lot of people because they're looking at that going, if I'm going to give you 30, 40 bucks and a monthly sub, or I could go over here and give Lord of the Rings Online, Star Wars: The Republic, EverQuest 2, World of Warcraft, Final Fantasy 14, the same amount of money, but I'm going to get hundreds of zones and hundreds of built-in hours of content already created for me, and you've got maybe 20 to 30 hours at most. That's a hard sell, and that comes back to what we were talking about at the very, very beginning of the episode, which is um, I feel like with indie games, even if it's a launched title, Shroud of the Avatar, Crowfall as examples, you're still buying into a vision as opposed to a product because there's not a big enough product there to support much more than the hardcore fans that have come along. And I know that,
uh, we have a recent example too.
which is,
Fractured Online just came out a few
ah,
weeks ago. Um, Now it's early access, which I think is a smarter thing to call your game, because then you can later, when you get all your features in, you can say, okay, now we're launching, right? You'll get people to come back, you'll get brand new sales, etc. You get another wave of hype, right? Which is really what Embers should have done at the very least. Or said we're going to start doing an open alpha. That would have been even smarter to say the game's not done. It's an alpha, but we're going to do an open alpha. Or I don't know, maybe that's not the right term, because then people think they don't gotta pay. Some term, alpha, cheap buy an alpha, $30, and you're in, and then you start paying subscription when the game launches. That I don't know if that'd have got them the money they wanted, but it would have been more long term. I can say that than what I think is going to end up happening with calling it a launch with 6 zones. Your end game content's not in, we think. Your alchemy, which is your magic system's not in yet. Performance is bad. Stuttering, low frame rates. Even with a 30 series card, you have to run it at potato mode. That's not launch. That's still a testing phase, right? But looking at Fractured Online, that released it ran pretty good. There may be small issues, but it runs good. Not feature complete. No NPCs, no dungeons, lack of content, just problems with wanting. If you're going to play this every day, you're going to run out of content fairly fast. Off to a pretty good start. So decent amount. I don't know the numbers, but pretty good. Lots of people run around on all the servers. Couple of weeks later, 50 people online. 50 people, and 5 of them were us. From Pantheon Plus. We were 10% of their entire population.
How many did they have when it was getting hyped up, when they were doing all their...
Thousands at the least. Hang on, let me see if I can find an actual number here.
Because that would be a very interesting number to look at, because you could say they went from this to 50.
There's 66 online right now. I don't think they ever released numbers. And I don't see where anybody documented.
Is it on Steam?
It is on Steam.
There should be some Steam chart stuff somewhere that shows peak.
Yeah, let me see if I can find it.
Because I would be genuinely curious, because let's say they had 10,000 people. To go from 10,000 to 50 is pretty abysmal.
I'm sorry, 63 was their peak in the past 24 hours. They're at 38 players online right now.
Oh, wow.
All-time peak was 1,515 people online.
That's it? 1,000 and how many?
1,515.
So 1,500?
Yeah, 1,500 was their max they've had online at one time.
10% of that would be 150 people.
Yeah.
Half of that, so 5% would be 75. So they're not even retaining 5% of their all-time high. They're retaining 3%. That right there is the perfect example of why guys like Jostrive Hayes and Asmongold, etc., don't really get hyped about indie games.
Yeah, and here's something else about Fractured Online. Maybe when it launches, those people will pay some attention to it. But Asmongold, Jostrive Hayes, Narc, etc., they didn't even pay attention.
Yeah, why?
I saw no coverage because it's early access, and that's kind of a good thing. That's kind of a boon that you have, is the people who are going to be super picky generally don't buy into pre-alphas.
I didn't even give it any coverage because I knew it wasn't going to be my style of game.
I played it once, live for me on my channel, and didn't like it. Just immediately was like, yeah, I don't like this. Not for me. Maybe it's a good game. Can't tell yet, but I don't like it. And then I played with Pantheon Plus, and I was like, yeah, I definitely don't like it. But I continued on. We played for 4 weeks, I think it was, and we'll be grading it next week. But it's not going to do good because even the people that liked it at the beginning
aren't playing
Mugen, etc., they found problems. You know what I mean? It's early access. You know what I mean? But I watched a bigger YouTuber talking about the game. Forgot who it was. One of the bigger ones. And I watched their review this morning, and they were complaining about the same things I did. But also they said there's just no reason to play this right now when there's games like Valheim that do these things better. You know what I mean? Uh, so yeah, it's just not. It's just that's a really good example though of like, and to be honest, from what I know, Fractured has more content in it now, and it runs good. It's got good performance, pretty good. Than Embers. I mean, Embers is launching in a way scarier shape than Fractured's early access, in my opinion, from the knowledge I have.
And again, I can't speak. This is not me disparaging them. Again, I want them to be
I
successful
do too.
for
God's
reasons. But here's
sakes.
the thing: I've seen posts on their forums and on mmorpg.com that say at no point in time during any of their testing has anyone ever seen more than 200 people total playing over the course of a weekend. I think the peak that I've seen mentioned is 80 or 85 players online at any one given time. And then
And they're
like
trying for one server.
right.
That shocked me. When I heard that, I was like, wait a minute, what? What if 3,000 people show up? Like,
Well,
don't they want that? Don't they hope that like a lot of people are going to show up? Like the server's not going to be able to handle? No way. No way will it be able to handle that, right? Am I
how many
wrong?
people were online the night you played when you were getting the horrible performance?
It was okay.
Like
I don't
60,
remember.
65, I think it was, 65
Maybe
people.
something like that. Yeah, yeah. But
In
what
one
if? But what if? But what if because it's launching, you just never know when you say you're launching, right? You never know how many people are just gonna be, like that day be like, oh sweet, it's a new MMO. I'm not even gonna research it. I'm just gonna buy $30. I'm in. I'm gonna play. Like you never know. You have to be prepared for that. I feel like you just never know. There's probably not. Okay, I'm gonna go way over the top here, but it is possible. It's not outside of the realm of possibility that 500,000 people tomorrow just learned there's a new MMO, thirsty as hell, and they just buy it and try to log in, dude. You know, it's possible. You have to. I feel like you need to be prepared. Way more than you even think you're gonna get, right?
It's an interesting conundrum because if you look at a game like Fractured, they
Huh?
had 1,500 people during their
Mm-hmm.
open beta weekend, and after all of that, only 36 people are online right now. So if you extrapolate those numbers out,
That's bad,
it
dude.
does not look good for a game that was only had apparently a peak of 200 people at any one given time over an open weekend.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
Maybe that's why they're doing the one server. But I don't know, man. That sounds mighty. It's a very ballsy move. I feel like to just not even entertain the thought that maybe you might have to open new servers. I feel like they should at least be prepared. Like, oh guys, our server's getting overrun. Here's some new servers. You know, we're gonna open them up. Give us 30 minutes to an hour. We'll have new servers up. Um, it sounds like they're not even entertaining that idea. And I understand because their population is low, and you want everybody to be, you want it to be exciting. There's a bunch of people running around, etc. But you also need to be prepared. I feel like
when are you guys going to start playing with
on
Pantheon Plus?
Saturday. Sorry. With the Pantheon Plus team, we're going to start playing on not this coming Tuesday, but the following, because we figure, it might be a little messy for the first week. So maybe by the following week, we can actually get in and play somewhat normally.
It'll be interesting to see, because I know like Fractured Online, it's not looking like it's going to pan out.
No.
I feel like because it's Vice said only MMO I'm hyped for is the one set in the League's universe, but that's a different thing because that's not an indie title. That's
Yeah.
League of Legends. That's they've got hundreds of millions of dollars at their
Oh yeah.
disposal,
That's
and they are
different. Yeah.
not going to launch a half-baked thing. They are going to polish the shit out of that game before it launches.
Yeah.
Similar to what we played. Nathan and I were here live when Wrath of the Lich King went live for World of Warcraft Classic, and granted, ours was not one of the new servers, but Peggle is still a busy, active server. We had queues on our server on launch day. We thankfully were on early enough to get hit with the queues, but it was the first time I've ever seen what I considered. I did a video about this actually on my channel. I was like, this was for me the most flawless launch in the history of my MMORPG career. Was sitting here playing Wrath of the Lich King live and watching those hundreds of players swarm the boat like locusts and then get off in the Borean tundra, and it was just like, oh my god, there's not I'm smooth as silk. on a 1080 old laptop, and I'm smooth as butter, no performance issues whatsoever. The servers, the only thing we saw was like peak time, like 7 o'clock at night. We noticed that there was lag, like a 2 second, perhaps a 2 second, like 1 to 2 second lag timer on like looting bodies.
Yeah,
It
that was the
because
only thing. Yep.
the loot server was just overwhelmed by all the people
Oh
that were
yeah.
playing the game, and so it was lagging out. But nobody got kicked, nobody got disconnected. The servers didn't go down, and it was like there's a difference between AAA companies and indie companies, and I feel like if I could spin this back to, I am a small time content creator, right? So I'm
Hmm.
willing to take risks because
Yeah, me too.
I don't necessarily know what's going to stick with my audience because I'm new to it, and so I haven't quite figured. So I'm willing to do a lot of different things, trying to figure out what's going to make the most amount of money because I need to survive. When you get into a position like Asmongold or etc., you know what your audience wants.
Right,
And
right.
also, you're big enough at that point that you're not going to waste your time doing something that you know is going to be a waste of your time. Now, I don't know
Unless you're
what's
doing it on purpose. Like, you know what, I don't care
right.
today. It's practically a day off. I'm going to do some random thing. Yeah,
I think, yeah, because like even Doctor Disrespected that one time, he did a
sure.
stream. He did a playthrough of Last of Us. I think it was the first one, and he literally had a disclaimer up on his channel. He was like, I normally don't do single player games, especially if they're single player games that take, you know, hundreds of hours to play through, was because um, he's like, I don't like to play single player games because it's not entertaining for my audience. It's people want to see me doing shooters and all this other stuff, but he's like, I want to do this as an experiment, but for me, and his numbers were abysmal compared to, he normally gets 35, 40,000 people, and he was only getting like, I think like 10 watching him play a single player game. And he might be willing to risk it for a short amount of time, but in the grand scope of things, he's got a whole team behind him, and he needs to ensure that that machine is constantly making as much money as possible to support everybody, plus the studio he's got going and everything else. Look at Mr. Beast as another example. He's got a whole team of people that work around the clock to do things. Um, you can't afford to waste time on these little indie games that 99% of them aren't going to make it. You have to focus on the ones like League of Legends
Sure.
and go, that game's going to make it. I know it's going to make it. I'm going to go play that. Or how about Guild Wars
Yeah.
2? I know that game's going to be there. I'll go play that. Or let's say Final Fantasy 14 or World of Warcraft Classic. And I'm sure as I get bigger with my channel, I will start to make those types of decisions and say, you know what? I need to make sure that I'm focused on the things that are going to generate the most ROI as I continue to grow. Right now, I'm lean enough and hungry enough that I'm willing to do just about anything to make sure I get super chats and do things that are entertaining to people. And I also haven't been doing it long enough to figure out exactly what are the games that aren't worth it for me. Um,
There's more freedom as a small content creator, basically, to
a
do
little
what you
bit, yeah.
want because, you know, you're gonna grow. So even if you don't make money and you do something different, you're likely gonna grow off of it. You're gonna grab up a couple of people from a different game or whatever. So there's less risk than there is when you're big and and people make assumptions so quick about content creators, right? And anybody in content creation knows that if you are playing a game and then you start playing a different game, people will say, "Oh, did you quit playing the other game?" Right? Like, well, no, it's just not playing it right now, right? I can only play one game at a time. I'm one person. Just because I'm playing this now doesn't mean I'm not playing the other game tomorrow or even later tonight. Um, but when you're huge, you don't have time to respond to every single person. You can't see every single comment, chat, etc. And therefore, you're just losing like grains of sand through your fingers. So they tend to take less risk, and I don't blame them. If I was Asmongold, I wouldn't be researching and looking at Pantheon Rise of the Fallen. I wouldn't be. Why would I? Right? That has nothing to do with his audience. It really doesn't. Um,
Not only that,
he
I made a comment today because someone was saying that Asmongold has a responsibility to do his due diligence, and I said no, he does not. He did a reaction video.
he couldn't have. that how do you do due diligence on a reaction video?
Yeah, you don't. You're reacting. Now, if you're doing a
Right.
review, sure, you're going to
All
do
right.
your due
Sure.
diligence for a review,
Sure.
but a reaction video is literally you pulling something up and reacting to it. There
Yeah.
is no due diligence in a
No.
reaction
No. The due
video.
diligence was done, and here's what it was. His moderator team picks videos, watches them, and says this would be a good reaction for Asmongold. It doesn't have boobs in it or anything that's going to get them banned, and I think this will get a good reaction out of Asmongold. Here you go, Asmongold. Here's a good one. Here's a lineup. You pick which ones you want to do. Here's your lineup. And he goes over and he says, yeah, we're going to watch this video today. It's already been pre-approved. That was his due diligence. That's it. Reactions, you do not do research for reaction. That'd be the worst content I can even think of. You're like, all right, guys, I want to watch this video, but first, let's look up the past 10 years of development for Pantheon Rise. Come on, nobody's going to watch that. You know?
Not only that, you lose the reaction aspect of it
Yeah.
if you've
No,
already.
there's no. Yeah, what's the point now? The reaction. Right. Right.
Yeah, I don't get it.
Yeah.
Well, I know we're at 7 o'clock, Nathan, and I know you got to go do your Pantheon thing tonight, so we should probably wrap up. So, here's the thing, everybody. I think that, at least from my perspective, I'm sure Nathan's got something to say on this as we wrap up our episode as well. When it comes to indie MMORPGs, there's a lot of issues with them. At the end of the day, some of them can be worth it. Some of them can. But remember, you're not pre-ordering when you pledge money to a crowd-funded indie game. You are supporting an idea, a vision. You are donating money to a cause, and if you get something back from that, consider yourself lucky. You've been blessed. Because most indie games fail, and you got to understand that when it comes to indie games, big content creators aren't going to tend to care about them until they've become an actual viable product. So that's the thing and there's nothing wrong with Nature said at the beginning of this. There's nothing wrong with having hope, because what would life be without having something to be hopeful for? There's nothing wrong with being hopeful about things. There's nothing wrong with buying into a vision. Don't let people mock you because you've bought into a vision. Like, some people will be like, oh, you're an idiot for giving money to Ashes of Creation. You're an idiot for giving money to Star Citizen. You're an idiot for giving money to Pantheon Rise of the Fallen. Don't let people shake you down like that. If you can afford it and you want to support the vision of a team, feel free. Just understand that when you pledge, it's not a guarantee of a product. That's a pre-order, and that's something completely different. And understand that indie teams are fighting an uphill battle both ways, barefoot in the snow, because it's just extremely difficult to make an MMORPG even with a team of 40 to 50 people. And when you've got a team of 5 or 10, that's rough, man. It's rough.
Unless your scope is very low, and even then, it would be very hard. You know, and you're probably I think the biggest thing to think about. I think you should support something you believe in.
Absolutely.
If that sounds like something you've always wanted it, but you're not willing to give it $1, then shame on you, in my opinion. If you can afford the $1. If you can't, that's different. If you can afford it and you believe in that and that's something you've always wanted, then all you're saying is you're voting with it. You're saying, hey, yes, there's a market for this. Here you go. Here's some money. But, like Renfo was talking about, you also have to understand, especially in the scope of seeing what happened with Chronicles of Valyria, that the chances of it succeeding are slim. The odds are against the project, okay? Especially if it's an MMO. And the odds of it being successful
are also
slim.
Yeah, because look at Crowfall and Shroud of the Avatar. Those were veteran teams. And people can say until the blue in the face, well, those games had bad game design. No, they didn't. 120 to 150,000 people bought each one of those games. 120.
The Shroud of Avatar is fun. Go play it if you don't believe
it. Can be, yeah. There are aspects of that game that are fun. Especially, I would argue that the single-player version of Shroud of the Avatar is the most fun version of it, at least for me. I didn't like the online component, but the single-player storyline and everything else, the gameplay's a little janky, but it is a fun game, and it's a fun storyline. I mean, Tracy Hickman wrote the story from the Dragonlance Chronicles, it's based on Richard Garriott's lore, but there's it's a good example of a game that did have a lot of good things going for it, but unfortunately, 120,000 sales is not enough to survive on because it's only going to give you enough money for a certain amount of time. You have to be able to maintain and retain players. And the way people play these days is you have to have a unicorn product to be able to retain more than 3 to 5% of your player base. And in order to retain enough people to keep you playing, you need to be selling millions of copies. And that's a very hard thing for most indie games to do because they're not able to provide enough content for people to want to support it with millions of players.
Right.
That could change. We could see, and then we have, I would say that, games like Pantheon that are taking their time, they're also fighting a different uphill battle because it is taking them so much time. And people
Yeah,
are
this I want to touch on that a little bit because there's something interesting about taking so long too. I've been talking to a lot of people, and I can see something interesting happening, which is that I'm making up numbers, okay, but I'm really not far off here with this number. I'm getting in the ballpark. There's roughly 5,000-ish people, okay, who are at least between fairly passionate to extremely maybe a little too passionate, okay, in the ballpark waiting for Pantheon that are invested, okay, in some alpha, beta, pre-alpha, whatever. And something I think is going to happen, and that crowd will grow. It continues to grow daily. It'll continue to grow, especially if they start showing us some stuff. Um, but what I think is going to happen is those people have waited so long that I think they're guaranteed a couple of years of subs. I think these people waited so long that by the time it's here, they're almost guaranteed whatever that number is 5, 6, 7,000 people are probably going to stay sub for at least 1 year out of pure I waited so long for this, I don't care.
assuming that they can provide enough content for players to have a
For
year's
them
worth
to
of stuff
play.
to shoot
That's a good
through.
point. Good point. Good
Because
point.
that's
If
the
they're in content,
that's the
they're
issue with
out.
the small development teams. If you've only got 2 world builders or 2 artists, you're only launching with six zones. Like you have got to have, I would argue that you need 30. You need at least 30 zones, cities, and dungeons combined. You need 30 different
I
scenes
think you're right. Yeah.
minimum.
That feels meaty, doesn't it? It's hard if somebody were to say there's no content in this game, and then somebody says, "Dude, there's 30 freaking dungeons at launch." You kind of feel kind of stupid then, like, "Oh, well, that's quite a bit," you know. Um, so I think you're right. 30 is a really good number. I think.
I think it's a good number to shoot for. If you can
I
provide your
think so
players
too.
with 30 different zones between dungeons, cities, and open world content, I think you stand a chance of giving your players a year's worth of content, assuming that those zones are populated. Because we've also seen other indie games that are launching that have big zones, but there's nothing in them. It's just wide open spaces because they can't
Yeah.
get their performance under control. So
Fractured Online.
they have these tiny pockets of content, but you have to run 15 minutes to get to it, and that 15 minutes is just empty space. Well, that's
Yep.
not fun
Fractured
for
Online.
anybody,
Yep. Yep.
you know.
Fractured Online definitely suffers from that. Pockets of things and wide open spaces in between.
Well, I
For
know
no reason.
your
For no
co-host
reason.
is in the chat, so I think we got to crack that whip, Nathan. And Sparrow's like, Pantheon? Did someone say Pantheon? I don't know. You guys have a Pantheon stream, so for those of you who are going to be interested in Pantheon, I think there's a Pantheon stream tonight. Yes.
Yes.
And then after the Pantheon stream, Nathan and Sparrow and Drac, I think, are hosting the
Derek, yep.
Pantheon after show. I'll be streaming World of Warcraft, so you've got 2 different options of where you want to go tonight, ladies and gentlemen. For those of you who are going to go do Pantheon, head that way. For those of you who are doing Warcraft, I'll be up in a little bit with my brother and Maduros. If you want to support this channel, remember that it goes towards myself, Nathan, Sparrow, Bounty, Skinny, my wife Chris, and my brother Joey. This is a partnership here on YouTube, or excuse me, Twitch. We hopefully will be back this Sunday. We've had health issues the last couple of weeks, but hopefully everybody's going to be back this Sunday night for the next session of our live stream campaign as we go through the 5th edition tabletop setting for the Weave and the Void. It's that world map behind me. I also do the map making sessions on Monday. I just sent off a new art idea to Sparrow that Becca might start working on, so we'll see if we get some more art stuff coming down the pipeline too. Chris is also working on some new art. Joey and I did a stand up last night, and I put a post out today. We are in the home stretch for our point and click game. For the end of the year is the goal is to have that out by Christmas, and it's really exciting because we're working on the new narrative and the new quests and everything else. So we're starting to wrap up that chapter 1 content, which hopefully is going to be something that gives players about 10 to 15 hours worth of gameplay for a single player game. So stay tuned to all those good things. You could support here directly with, I think, bits is one way, as also you can subscribe here with Prime or otherwise. But if you're watching this on YouTube after the fact, don't forget to like, subscribe, hit the bell icon. Join over at the Patreon page, patreon.com/wandering hermits. There's multiple tiers. The tiers come with products. You can also go to weaveandvoid.com. All are great places to support. And then we will be back next week with a new topic. If you want to have us talk about something in particular that's not on our list, feel free to suggest it to us during live streams, as well as just on YouTube or in Discord. That's it for me. I don't know if you have anything you want to say, Nathan, as we wrap up.
Yep, that's it. I hope everybody enjoyed the show, and we'll be back next week with more.
Have fun, everybody. Until next time, stay safe. Happy gaming.